My goodness. I think at this point I've seen it all, because today we are expanding on the video topic we had brought up a few weeks ago. Remember this video? Yeah, Nylander, Habs target, whatever, could he get traded, etc., etc. We talked about this a while ago, right? But today we're talking about it even more. And instead of just bringing up the idea in isolation, by itself, today we are talking about whatever trade price could be there for a William Nylander deal to the Montreal Canadiens. The article that we're pulling this from comes from TVA Sports, and the source is Michael Trakos, who had himself an appearance on the Canadiens Connection podcast. Now, of course, Canadiens Connection, TVA Sports, this is all Habs stuff, and Trakos is primarily a Toronto Maple Leafs beat reporter, so just a little bit down the 401 over there, but his appearance on the Canadiens Connection podcast illuminated the ideas as to what the trade could look like. I'll leave a link in the description to the audio of the podcast, as well as a link to the article we're pulling these quotes from, so if you wanted to consume more of this, just kind of read it or listen to it, then hey, the audio is all there. But Michael Trakos on the Canadiens Connection podcast claims that a potential return for Nylander would be astronomical if the Swede were ever to be traded. He was answering a question from a listener regarding the possibility of having a first line consisting of Caufield, Suzuki, and Nylander in Montreal. Now, last time we had talked about Nylander and the Habs, there was sort of a hovering idea as to whom he would play with, what guys he would succeed with, etc., etc. And in the case of transaction, the supporters of the Canadiens will not like the return, Trakos says. I believe the names of Caufield, Slafkovsky, and Guhle would be in the discussions. Now, the way he phrases it, it's not Nylander for one of Slafkovsky, or one of Guhle, or one of Caufield, or even all three in return. It's just kind of names that would be tossed around there. But of course, hearing all these names in the same sentence as Nylander trade does not sound great for Canadiens fans who are looking for the future of this team. I mean, moreover, at the same time, Trakos also believes the Canadiens do not need Nylander, and the current core of the club is solid, but still. If you wanted to get further into the idea of trade price for Nylander, we talk about this all the time, but when it comes to guys that are big-name, caliber players, top-tier guys that are getting traded or getting on the move, the Tkachuks, the Dubois, the Eichels, sure, some of these guys are discounted because either they want only one specific team to get traded to, or they have injury issues. We had seen similar things pop up with Patrick Kane. He only wanted to go to the Rangers. Jack Eichel had stuff going on with his neck. Pierre-Luc Dubois was very limited in which teams he wanted to go to. But despite these restrictions, sometimes teams are able to just make it work. Like, for example, Matthew Tkachuk, that guy wanted to get traded to a team in the mid to eastern region of the US, he got traded to Florida, and the Flames got a boatload of stuff in return. However, for William Nylander, this is an entirely other discussion because so far, based off of everything we've heard, there isn't necessarily one or two teams in particular that he only wants to go to. DeBrincat only wanted to go to Detroit. Kane only wanted to go to New York. So there's a lot more flexibility here, and therefore a little bit more bargaining power for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have the right to ask for whatever it is a 40-goal, 80-point guy is worth long-term in some sort of a trade. And if it is Montreal that Nylander gets sent over to, firstly, we could just establish that when it comes to money, I don't think they would really have any problems trading for a guy like Nylander and re-signing him, especially since the guys going over in a return would probably be some big money names as well. If it is Cole Caufield, for example, that guy's making a lot of money over the next few years, but the ideas tossed around here, I mean, Caufield, Slafkovsky, and Guhle, I mean, there's no way Trakos is suggesting that each of these three guys would need to be involved in one trade for Nylander, right? It's not Nylander for Caufield, Slafkovsky, and Guhle, right? It's one of the three and maybe some extra picks or another prospect or two. These names would have to be the big names going back, though. Is that correct? Because if it is all three of them, then honestly, I feel like that's a little bit of an overpay. And I know there are a lot of Canadiens fans that are going to be tuning into this video and saying, yeah, no, just Caufield by himself. That is an overpay, because you could debate that Caufield is a more valuable asset. Not only does Caufield have the point production or the points per game or the goals per game to justify being kept around or maybe even being in the same realm as Nylander, but he's got a contract that sees him making a significantly smaller amount of money. $7.8 million a year till the end of 2031. If Caufield gets 40 goals next year, which we all know is not too impossible to think about, then hey, that's what Nylander's goal production high is. Caufield, you could debate, is already a better goal scorer than Nylander. He just needs the longevity to prove it. He just needs the games played to prove it over a full 82-game campaign, because he's had his seasons cut short the past 2 years. You could say for Slafkovsky, that guy's still growing, and that guy's a first overall pick. And he's not like one of these first overall picks from a few years ago. Nah, he's literally from last year. Slafkovsky still has himself a certain amount of pedigree that combines with being a top-tier player in a draft, and there's extra value there that is not really present in many other hockey players. As for Kaiden Guhle, he's probably the best young guy the Canadiens have on their blue line, so there's a lot of value there too. He really improved this previous year, so even though he is just a pretty young guy still, there's a lot of growth potential with Guhle. I mean, look, the Canadiens getting a big, puck-moving defenseman that's solid in his own end and very good defensively, that's not terrible. The idea of the Maple Leafs getting Cole Caufield is not terrible either, because they have Brock Caufield already in their system, which would really make a nice opportunity for some good storylines. And then, of course, Slafkovsky having another first overall pick to play with Matthews sounds like a great idea. But all three of these guys together, no shot, dude. Absolutely no shot. I get it, Michael Trakos is getting clicks, and he's bringing the tea as to what Cole Caufield, or what William Nylander, his value could be on the market in regards to a Canadiens trade. But it's probably one of the three, and maybe some extra picks and stuff. Not all three. And even in the realm of Caufield, you could very much debate and say that it's not worth it for the Canadiens to even do it 1-for-1. Caufield for Nylander, a lot of Habs fans, you know they would say no. You know they would say it's not worth it. You know they would say the Canadiens are better off just keeping Cole Caufield, because that guy has so much growth to exhibit. The only difference here is that trading Nylander away for a prospect or a young guy like Caufield, Slafkovsky, or Guhle, you're trading Nylander away for maybes. Now, in the case of Caufield, you could say that maybe is a lot more likely to be a yes than a no, but still, his track record has not had the games played to prove that he's at that level just yet. Nylander has had 2 straight seasons of being elite, he's had a bunch of years where he's just gotten better as the years have gone on, and he has been in a position where he's more important and more valued than a lot of these other top-tier guys, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, in the playoffs when the games matter the most. He produced the most against Florida. The other two guys didn't do it much, if not at all. So, for Nylander, there's value here. He's guaranteed. Caufield's not that guaranteed, but he's pretty close to being guaranteed. Slafkovsky is a maybe. Guhle is a maybe. And so, when it comes to this idea, I mean, if it's Nylander for, like, Guhle and another prospect or something, I honestly think about it. If it's Nylander for Slafkovsky, if you twisted my arm, I would think about it. If it's Nylander for Caufield, I'm not thinking about that. I think the Canadiens are probably better off with Caufield, just in my opinion, to be honest. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this entire idea here? William Nylander getting traded over to the Habs for one of Caufield, Slafkovsky, or Guhle. Add on a pick, add on a prospect. Maybe do all three if you want it to be rambunctious and crazy like that. Links are in the description to the audio of the podcast where Traco says this, as well as the TVA Sports article we read. There are a few other things talked about in the article that we didn't talk about in the video, but still. Trakos does say, to his credit though, that the Canadiens don't really need Nylander and that their core is pretty much alright without him, and that's a very fair point as well. I'm going to agree with that, say that the Canadiens don't really need this guy at all, but if they were to try to explore a trade, the price would be astronomical. They'd probably be giving up somebody that is amongst these names. Of course, Canadiens fans wouldn't like that because they love to overrate their guys and they grow very odd emotional attachments to players that play for the Habs sweater, which is not bad. I mean, it's just kind of a thing. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of Nylander getting traded to the Habs. What do you think about the idea of Caufield or Guhle or Slafkovsky in Toronto instead? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.